Hi everyone. My book is on The Existent Night by Italo Calvino, and what I'm gonna be doing today is just to introduce you a little bit more of what the book is about and also about the life of Italo Calvino. Italo Calvino was born in 1923 in Cuba. He is the son of Mario Calvino, who was a former anarchist, a social reformist with Marxist leanings, and a botanist. He lived in the beginning of the 20th century in Mexico. After that, during the Mexican Revolution of 1917, he moved to Italy, and then he married his wife, and then he moved to Cuba in 1920. Italo Calvino's mom was Giuliana Lucia Evelina Mameli. She was a very well-known botanist and university professor. In 1920, after their wedding, she received an offer to actually work at the botany department of the agricultural experiment station in Cuba, and that's why Italo was born there. Italo was born in 1923, and then he said that his parents actually had very different types of personalities, despite the fact that they were very secular and very left wing. His family returns 5 years later after they had settled in Cuba to Italy, and that's where his brother was born in 1927. After that, his parents became even more involved in Marxism, Freemasonry, and Republican anarchism. At the end of, before the beginning of the Second World War, he became friends with Eugenius Calfaria, who was a very good friend of his and the founder of two important left-wing newspapers, L'Espresso and La Repubblica. And together they founded the University Liberal Movement. During the Second World War, or actually the end of the Second World War, when Mussolini was losing the war, he founded a new republic in central and northern Italy, the Socialist Italian Republic. And that was also during the time when he had settled down in northern Italy to pursue university education studies in Turin, where he actually initiated his studies as in agriculture, following the steps of his parents, but he became very disillusioned with what was happening during the Second World War, and then in 1943 he decided to just join the counter-resistance movement against the fascists, and also because his mother had advised him and his son to actually join the counter-resistance movement. At the end of the Second World War, he had dropped out of his university education studies, and then he became more involved in humanity studies. He also saw the horrors of the Second World War, and that actually left a very personal legacy on his life. And then he started writing after the Second World War, and during this time, at the end of the 40s, he was also beginning of the 50s, he was stationed to become a correspondent in the Soviet Union for the left-wing Unita newspaper, and that was also during. And it was also during this period that he even became more involved with communist ideologies, social movements, and parties, exclusively the Communist Party in Italy. But there was a moment in his life or in world history that made him turn to the other side and made him become very disillusioned with communism, even though he had thought during the Second World War that communism was the best political system. And that was, as you can see in the picture, the 1956 revolts that happened across Central and Eastern Europe, and the crash that the Soviet troops did to reestablish order there. So because of the aggression of the Soviet troops, he became very upset with what was happening there, and then he decided to become apolitical. Still very much admiring communist or socialist principles, but not becoming involved with any political party anymore. It was in the 60s as well that he came to meet his wife, Chichira, and then it was at the end of the 60s that he moved with his family to Paris. It was also during this time that he refused to be awarded the Viareggio Prize because he thought he was too capitalist, but he accepted the Astor Prize at the beginning of the 1970s. He then became very well attached to academia circles, especially the ones in Paris at the Sorbonne and University of Urbino. After that, along his life, his main influences were Honoré de Balzac, Ludovico Ariosto, Saint Ignatius of Loyola, Cervantes, Shakespeare, Cyrano de Bergerac, and Giacomo Leopardi. It was during at the end of his life that he continued receiving awards, and also it was during this time that he continued publishing and becoming even more famous around the world. An important event in his life happened at the end of the 70s when his mom passed away, and that also was a very deep shock to him because he was very well attached to his mom. It was also at the beginning of the 80s that he became very well known in American academia, and he started to have his works published, especially within Harvard University. But he came to die in 1985, at the end of 1985, and after that, it was after his death that his memos were also published. The story that I had to read was called The Non-Existent Knight, and it was a story that was more like a fictional realism about the time when the Arabic Empire was expanding in Western Europe. It had conquered almost all of Spain and Portugal, and it was marching and heading towards southern France. So it was during the time of Charlemagne and the time that he was trying to just fight the Arabic troops and try to just regain full control of France. So the two main characters of this military knight story about soldiers or medieval soldiers and the chivalry is about the lives of Agilolfo and Rambaldo. So they were actually two soldiers. Rondolfo was a very bad experienced soldier, and Agilolfo was a more experienced soldier, and he was also known as a non-existent knight. Rambaldo wanted to join the knights because he wanted to take revenge against the death of his father. He had been killed by an Arab knight called Argalef Isoarre. After that, we see at the beginning of the novel the appearance of Curdulu, who was more like a jester and also a peasant, and he was assigned by Charlemagne to actually be on Agilulfo's team. So he became a subordinate of Agilulfo. After that, there was a battle against the Arabs, and Rambaldo was almost killed, but was saved by a soldier or a knight that he didn't know where he came from. It turned out that it was a woman, Bradamante, and he actually ended up being in love with her. But she actually snubs him and says that she's actually in love with his superior, Agilolfo. So at this time of the story, we come to see a love triangle taking place, which is something that becomes part of the story. In the meantime, we have the introduction of another important character who is called Torresmondo. He is actually from Cornwall in England, and then he actually is the son of the Scotland king and queen. He was also fighting against the Arabs, so he came in the defense of the Franks. But it turned out that Agilulfo finds out during a banquet that that he was the son of Sophronia, a virgin that he had saved 15 years earlier, and which made him be known for his courage and gave him status and importance in society, and also made him become a knight. So his status was just jeopardized or under scrutiny because she was not a virgin when he actually had saved her and against a rape that was supposed to be taking place against Torresmondo's mom, who was also called Sophronia. Sophronia becomes eventually a nun, and then she goes to live in a convent. So, to clean his name and to make sure that she was a virgin when he has saved her, he actually goes after Sophronia, and he tries to find her at the convent. But unfortunately, what happens is that the convent was attacked by Arab troops or Arab knights, and she was actually taken with all other nuns to Morocco, where she was actually supposed to become the 365th wife of the local sheikh. He is able to rescue her without any further problem, and then he actually just brings her back to France, where she's actually taken to a cave in Brittany. It was actually in this cave that she stayed for a while, where she actually found her apparent son, Torresmondo, and they actually come and have a sexual encounter. But then when Agilolfo comes back, he actually finds that out, and he actually tells them that they are actually mother and son. To everybody's shame, they actually come into desperation, but it turns out that they were not a mom and son, but rather half siblings. So this actually makes the situation be okay for everyone to accept. So they build a relationship, but a little bit earlier, Agilulfo comes out of shame just because he had thought that she was not a virgin and disappears for good in the closed forest. That is actually a close relation to, or a close indication that he might have committed suicide. So he leaves his horse and he leaves everything to Rambaldo, and he actually becomes the new knight. So and then Rambaldo actually ends up marrying Brahmanante, who was also a nun and the main narrator of the story. Some of the important themes of the novel that I found were revenge, or also known as vendetta. So that was actually the revenge that he had to take as if you were a knight or an upper class person, to clean your name or clean your family or bring honor back to your family. The quest of knighthood and warfare, that was very important in Middle Ages battles. The theme of power and honor, and how you were supposed to honor yourself in front of others and in society, and who held power, social collectivity, so how you were supposed to fight for your kingdom or fight for your society and bring peace and try to just win against any threats, social order and social class, and the hierarchy that came out of that, and the clash of civilizations that one could actually study from a political point of view or historic point of view that existed in the Middle Ages against Christian Europe and the new Arabic Muslim empire that was being formed at that time. So this is the end of my presentation. I thank you very much for your time, and I wish you a very good day.